we are on the verge of entering into what we call a networking supercycle. And you can see it in our results over the course of the past few years as well. There's been a tremendous amount of momentum. And the reason for that is, if you take a step back and say, what's happening in the market right now, there's two major phenomena that are occurring that are very, very poignant to what we're talking about. The first one is that we're moving from chatbots to agents, where these agents can conduct tasks and jobs for us almost fully autonomously. And these agents tend to be far more consumptive in their patterns of usage on network bandwidth compared to humans. And so while a human might use X amount of network bandwidth to conduct a task, an agent does 450% more to conduct the same task. And so you just need more network bandwidth than what you would have otherwise. And there's going to be trillions of agents around the world. So that's the first major kind of shift that's happening. The second one is we're living in a world that's post-mythos, which is the model that Anthropic had built that actually can really help with identifying vulnerabilities at a much faster pace with an infrastructure. And in that world, what you're going to start to see is, protecting infrastructure and having security and safety be something that's actually organized at machine scale is a very important thing. So these two dynamics, and then the third one being physical AI, which is right around the corner, make networking at the center of it all. So you'll see that inferencing is much more, or just as much, network and memory constrained as it is compute constrained.
I know we want to ask you about Mythos, but before we get there, let me just ask you how Cisco is kind of transforming its business to deal with the kind of demand, the super cycle that you're talking about. I imagine that's manifest in all of the data center demand that we're seeing across this country and around the world. What are you doing differently? How are you meeting that demand as a company?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been very, very focused on is making sure that as the demand explodes, that we've actually gotten our supply chain in order as well. The good news about Cisco is we are one of the few companies in the world that are fully vertically integrated platforms. So we make our own silicon, we make our own optics, which is what communicates the data between chips within a data center or even across data centers that might be hundreds of kilometers apart. And then we make our own hardware and systems, and then our own operating system and software and platforms around security and observability. So you've got a full stack. And one of the things that we had to do is get ahead and make sure that we can start forecasting. Because if you just look at last quarter, our product orders on a base of 63 billion grew 35%. Wow. So there's a tremendous amount of kind of momentum in the business. We've seen that reflected in our stock price, of course, which I don't check every day, but it's important to know that when there's that much demand signal, you have to make sure that it becomes a supply constrained world, and you have to keep the supply going, which is where we are focused quite a bit on, in addition to the technology innovation that we continue to keep moving faster than I've ever seen a company this size move before.
Excellent. Jeetu, I have to go back to Mythos, and I'm glad you said it because it's been this mythos.
Yes.
Which is it?
We'll follow your lead on that pronunciation.
It's a proper noun. You can pronounce it whatever way you want.
You are one of the few companies who has gotten their hands on this. So what have you learned? Are you more worried, less concerned? What are your thoughts on it at this point?
Well, one of the things that is important is as AI becomes more and more prominent, Mythos happens to be a catalytic event, but if you just look in general, what we've had over the past 30 years is this notion where the adversary, the bad folks, have always had an advantage over the defenders, who are the good folks. And the reason for that is because the adversary has to be right once, the defender has to be right every single time. This is the first time that you might actually see that if we can coordinate ourselves and companies can coordinate themselves to say, I'm going to make sure that my defenses are machine scale rather than human scale. And we can actually have a time advantage because Mythos was made available to companies like us before it got made available to the world at large, which is when the bad folks get a hand on it. You could start to see an asymmetric move where the defenders might have an asymmetric advantage over the adversaries over time.
A big question I think that's front of mind for everybody is what AI is going to do to the labor force. And I saw that Cisco announced plans to have some layoffs soon. And I'm curious, is that tied into the AI story? How do you think about the way that AI is dislocating the workforce and how it might going forward?
Yeah, so the restructuring that we announced actually had Nothing to do with cost efficiency. It was more around reallocation of dollars, where we wanted to make sure that we put the dollars in higher growth areas, so that we will actually see an increase in OpEx, not a decrease year over year as we move forward. So we're investing in the business rather than taking away from it, just to be very clear. As you start to think about the job situation and what people have talked about, the common concerns have been, well, AI is going to take all jobs. We're going to be sitting on a beach staring at the ocean. AI is going to do everything for us. What we've found is actually exactly the opposite. As you know, we're one of the largest users from a coding perspective. We have 30,000 engineers, over 30,000 engineers, and they all use codecs from OpenAI as well as Claude Code to go out and write code. We, in fact, have our first product that's now written 100% with AI, and we're going to have about half a dozen products by the end of the year that'll be 100% written with AI. And by the end of next year, 70% of all of our code will be written with AI. And the things that we're finding that are surprising and counterintuitive is, with all this code written with AI, we're seeing many, many more human bottlenecks than not. And so I actually think, maybe this is contrarian in the thinking, I think you will see an increase in jobs rather than a decrease in jobs because of AI. But what you will see is a lot of reconfiguration of how jobs are actually being done. And that's something that the delta between someone who is AI fluent and someone who's not AI fluent is not going to be a 20% gap or productivity. It's going to be like 50x.
Wow.
And so the people that know AI well will be in exceptionally high demand. And that's actually going to continue to persist. I don't think that changes in state.
I have to ask you, Cisco used to get painted with the same brush as memory, kind of cyclical, slow and low. What would you say now? Because it seems like it's not the case. I mean, is this a new era for Cisco?
You know, when I took over the job of running all products 2 years ago, I had said in a year you will see Cisco look very different. In 2 years, we'll be unrecognizable. It does help to have 270 billion added to the market cap. But I will say this, that fundamentally the way in which we are operating and the way in which we are innovating is at a, we like to think of ourselves as one of the world's largest startups. And it's truly the case. And what you're seeing right now is not just cyclicality, it is a secular shift. And when that kind of secular shift happens, where you have a platform shift of AI being something which is not just a technology that's added, these are digital co-workers that become additional teammates in our teams, which increase capacity for the corpus of humanity by 1,000x. It becomes a very, very different kind of dynamic, because all the assumptions you have around the infrastructure aren't temporarily changed, they're permanently changed on what level of throughput you're going to need. And that actually is going to create a networking kind of super cycle in our mind. And it's already created an infrastructure super cycle.
Before we let you go, we're talking to you on the eve of Cisco Live in Las Vegas, big event for you and the company. Can you give us any sneak peek of what you plan to debut there, or what you think the focus of that conference is going to be this year? Give us something.
Come on.
I was told that I need to give you folks some kind of exclusive, so I'll try to do that. But we have 25,000 of our closest customers that tend to come and assemble in Vegas, and we try to do once a year the entire kind of what are the new innovations that we're coming out with. It's for our most loyal customers and the ones who are really, really focused on running their businesses on us. What we've found is, as you've seen this kind of super cycle for infrastructure, the way in which organizations manage infrastructure has actually not kept up. And so it's very complex to manage infrastructure. So I think you should expect to see a fundamentally different way with AI and agents. Then infrastructure gets managed for organizations and dramatically simplifies that. The exclusive I'll give you, though, is we're going to have a whole new era of switches and routers and firewalls and Wi-Fi access points for updating the infrastructure. Because up until now, what was happening was the constraints were largely in the data center, but where you needed to do things. But now what's happening with inferencing is it's no longer just constrained to the data center. Data centers and hyperscalers are moving at a really fast pace. We're growing triple digits in that side of the house for AI workloads. But when you come to even people sitting at their desks that have a laptop will have a Mac Mini by themselves, and they'll have 100 agents starting to do work. Now imagine that gets to be the common way that everyone does work. You're going to have trillions of agents, and these agents are going to create so much more traffic, and it's going to require so much more security and inspection that we feel like the entire networking apparatus has to get upgraded, and that's what we're actually announcing. So don't tell me that I didn't give you the exclusive, but that's something that's only for Bloomberg.
We will take it. Jeetu, thank you very much. Appreciate it.